All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Talk at 8, episode 73. My name is Alton. I am the host, and tonight we're joined, as usual, by three amazing guests talking about how sport has changed their lives. We're joined by Dr. Jocelyn Solomons, Mr. Ashraf Calvert, and Mr. Daniel Adonis. You note I use your full names, just raise your importance level, guys. So welcome to everybody. As usual, we carry on till about 9 o'clock. We talk about sport and matters that affect you, that affect us, and how sport has changed our lives and how it changes you. And ultimately, we want to have the conversation about growing sport. So, without much further ado, Jocelyn, good evening, Dr. Jocelyn Solomons. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, Alton, and have everybody that's joined in. You put me on the spot because your two other guests have had some practice. But yeah, about me. So I am a lecturer at the Division of Sports Science at Stellenbosch University. Born, bred, and raised in the Helderberg area. Did my undergraduate, postgraduate, including my master's, as well as my PhD at Stellies. So I'm part of the furniture currently, but very proud of that. And when I'm not in the lecture room, I find myself in the gym. I'm a dancer in my spare time with the spare time that I've got. Also a proud dog mom of two. So between the dancing, the lecturing, I also have a podcast series on women in sports. So my research is what also keeps me going outside of the lecture room. And I've tried to really just have a couple of people on the show with regards to the podcast series that can give insights as to women's rugby, but not just that, just women in the space of sport, whether it be on the field or off the field. And what I love to do in my spare time is to be on the beach, be outdoors, spend some time with my family, and really just to decompress. I do say I'm an extrovert, but I get my energy from really just honing in on the things that fill my cup, and that's often drawing into what I do, alone and in that solitude and quietness of my everyday. And that's me in a nutshell.
Sure. It's a mouthful, but before we get to the other guys, tell us a little about your dissertation. What was it about? Your doctorate thesis? Because
So the
there's been
thesis.
many along the way. Let's focus on the last one.
So the last one was about women's rugby in South Africa, and I tried to create this landscape of what women's rugby is about. And there's been other studies regarding women's rugby, but where the PhD went was to show what we have gotten right. The long steps that we still need to go, both on and off the field. I honed in about women's perceptions, coaches, stakeholders. What are their types of experiences, in the field, living women's rugby every day? Because often with these types of projects, you see that we try to hit on management level and go straight to the big guns and the decision makers, where we know that the implementation of structures and policies and practices actually are felt by the people that are playing the sport and coaching it. So my heart was really in about, giving a voice to the people that are experiencing it, the coaches and the players, and then some stakeholders. What's interesting is I'm not a rugby player. This idea for this dissertation came about when the late Professor Wilbur Clark and I, during COVID time, tried to see, where's the impact that we could make, because he said, this dissertation not only needs to change someone's life outside of the walls, but also it needs to change your perspective, and it needs to challenge you as a person and sort of challenge your status quo and create this paradigm shift. So I knew I wanted it to be in rugby. And because he was my study supervisor, it was only natural that it is in rugby. So if any of you know who the late Professor Wilbur Clark is, he was a heavyweight within the rugby sphere. Yeah. And I knew it was going to be rugby. Didn't know why, didn't know where we were going to end up. But particularly during COVID, when there was no sport, I saw this gap that, okay, while there's no sport, how can we, hoe kan ons vir ons eie deur vee, if I can put it that way. And so that was where the idea went. And I was like, you're a female, you're positioned strategically, you're a female of color, you're in a male dominated, I guess, sector. So why not just take the ball by the horns and go and start shaking up and rattle a bit of feathers. Yeah, and my master study was dance and rugby, so there is some kind of alignment, but it went into two very different areas of focus eventually.
And that's interesting because I will explore that component in a bit, because Ashraf coaches women, Daniel's involved with coaching women, so there's a bit of a synergy between all of us, and we'll talk about some of those dynamics. Good evening. If you've just tuned in, Dr. Jocelyn Solomons has just shared a little bit about her. Mr. Ashraf Calvert will be next. Ashi, assalamu alaikum. Are you good, my man?
I'm good. I'm good. I to all the viewers out there can't complain. Eh?
Good, good, good. Tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do?
Okay, I'm just a guy that focuses solely on soccer. I eat, sleep, soccer. Currently a
Yeah.
football coach. Obviously started like everybody else, playing the game, loving the game. Went through the stages of playing. Obviously didn't end up where I would want to, due to for whatever reasons, injuries and whatnot. Then took a liking in coaching. I knew I had a gift in there, seeing how people react to how I coach. And now today I have my own coaching company, so a kind of entrepreneur where we focus on kids at ECDs, primary schools, and high schools. And then obviously in the evening to coach at clubs, various clubs. At the moment, I'm currently at Regenstahl Football Club. Was head of football, and now I'm running the ladies section. Currently coaching the regional women's development team. So yeah, so that's what I do. Eat, sleep, soccer. Also studied at UWC, BSc Sports and Exercise Science. My cafe license since 2017. Looking to do the pro license whenever I get the opportunity, and the instructorship course that's on the to-do list. But yeah, anything football related, Western Cape, Joburg, wherever you name it, come to me and I can help you in any way.
And so what's it like in the sport in the football space now, Ashraf, in terms of how competitive is it currently? Because you have a club playing in an LFA, then you go to the different levels of SAB, then you get NFD, and then you get PSL. How competitive is all of this currently?
I think it is very competitive. But I think our football isn't really in the best of states. To let's be honest about it. I think our administrators are not doing the just, adding all the different rules to the various age groups, not knowing what is the right things for football. And I think it's causing our football to suffer on the long end of things. So I think we as South Africa in a whole, we are not finding the right steps and structures to actually get the best out of our country. I think when it comes to selections alone for provincial teams, we don't have the right steps in place. It's still not structured to where they get filtered through, like you say, from clubs to LFA to into LFA to seniors. It's just not right. So I think on the whole, our soccer isn't where it is. I mean, if you look at Bafana, they only started the test traps now, right? But if you look on the country whole, we as South Africa should be one of the leading countries in football. If you look at the facilities you compare to the other African countries, but we're not there yet. And we ask ourselves why. We should be one of the leading countries. So I think on the whole, we're not where we are should be and where we can be. But I know South Africa is a country that can definitely be there where we need to be if we do it right. So yeah.
100%. We're gonna park that. I'm already seeing the synergy between what Jocelyn was saying and what you're saying. So we're gonna come to this now, Mr. Daniel Adonis, in the lap of where are you, sir? You look like you're in Bahamas there.
Let's call it Bahamas for now. Hi there,
Tell us a little
hi
bit
there,
about you,
viewers.
Mr. Daniel.
So I'm in the retail world. I'm in the retail world. Currently working at Woolworths. So I ran for Mitchells Plain Titans. I started running in 2017, so not that long ago. It actually started as a day, not because I loved running. I actually never made running on school. I
Yeah.
never made it in a row ice or a blow ice. so 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 all these things came later in my life, where I started. So I'm currently doing my degree in supply chain logistics management, kind of to further my career. And yeah, running has been more the thing that actually kept me together over the years, because we face some tough times, especially growing up in the place in Menenberg. There's a lot to go through there, and you kind of need to keep your head, because all your friends, they're all falling off the wayside. And same like what Ashraf is said about getting the people together, like everyone of the streets and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, currently I am just where I can help the youngsters who's trying to get into running. I try to give my services there, my experiences that I built over this 9 years, 8 years of running. I try to educate the others. Also being a high school dropout myself, so I try to encourage the youngsters just to stay on the track, because at the end of the days, they fall off because they think that there's no hope outside there. But there's always hope in sport, and we always try to empower the youngsters, to become better.
Thanks, Danny. And you touch on another point that we'll get to in a bit. So if you've just tuned in, welcome. We're chatting to Jocelyn, Ashraf, and Daniel. You're welcome to, if you're watching on Insta, on YouTube or Facebook, drop us a comment, tell us your thoughts, add to the conversation, and give us some input. Jocelyn, Ashraf, and Daniel, you spoke about a lot of different things. So I want to take a few steps back. Let's talk about what you perceive, because Jocelyn looked at female rugby players, Ashraf female football players, Daniel coaches and helps the youngsters. What would, in your minds, would you say would be the ideal support structure to help an athlete? Because if I look at everything you've spoken about, you all speak about the same thing, about developing athletes and growing the level of sport in all your different codes of sport. What, from your perspective, would you say are the key things we need to take away, or we need to look for to make sure that the next banana player, Jocelyn, the next Springbok Sevens women's team that's going to come, that's now 15, 16. Danny, the next Ferda, from a running perspective. What do we need to do differently now? Taking what you said also, Ashraf, about facilities. If we add that to the mix, and then if we take into account education, the lack of education, what do you guys think we need to be doing? Any one of you can go first.
Okay, I would go first. I would say, look, if we look at schools first, schools is where everybody goes to. So if we improve the facilities of schools, the sporting at schools, the coaching at schools, I think that would be your first point of call, where you would get children to do the specific sport. Can be any sport, if it's running or it's football. If you get the right facilities at the schools, which we need, you will be doing a double bonus, where you upgrading the school and you get creating a good environment for the athlete to then excel in the sporting code. Because not everybody can make it to a club, but everybody goes to the school. So if we improve our school leagues, get proper structures, get proper coaching facilities, we then obviously adding great value and support to the kids, and from there they can obviously push on to the sporting clubs side of things. So I think if we improve the sport code at school level, that will help tremendously. That's just from football, I would see. We don't
Okay.
have proper leagues. We don't have scouting from the various schools. They're all coming, but it's not done properly. And obviously, financial support or fundage from the WECD is always needed. I think once that is in there and they show support, I think it will grow holistically.
So you saying we need to A, capacitate coaches, B, then have inter and intra leagues within the school to get the best team under 12, under 14, and then play against another school. Okay, let's park that.
I think,
Jocelyn, what
yeah.
do you say? Okay, Ashley, you want to respond?
No, go for it. Go for it. I think
Okay,
I have
Jocelyn?
to agree with Coach Asi there, because, and I want to take it a step back. Elton, you said, what is the ideal structure? And that's so loaded, but there first needs to be a structure before there's an ideal structure, right? And what we find, particularly in women's rugby currently, is there's a high performance structure, but then when we look at school level, we look at the developing structure, the development structure and then high performance, there's a gap.
100%.
And so tying into what Coach Assi said, at schools there needs to be more awareness, more exposure, more capacity building for coaches. The problem is also a little bit the fact that we're in this digital era and age, and so it's all online and technology, this, that, and the other, and our kids aren't active, playing outside, refining biomotor skills, specializing in different sport codes, or just playing. So that's a different topic on its own. But I think, and also what I highlighted in my dissertation is, for women's rugby, we are developing and high performing at the same time.
Yeah.
Because the ladies come in on the back end. Absolutely. So they scouted, for example, because they come from track and field, or they come from netball, they come from hockey. So they've got the athletic capabilities as an athlete. That ticks the boxes. They're fast, they're powerful. Now we get them into a rugby system at the age of 16, 17, 18. Now they have to compete against teams like New Zealand, Ireland, England. Those ladies who have been training, going through all those phases of development from a very young age because they've been exposed to it. So that long-term player development plan, they have followed strategically. Our ladies are doing play to teach, teach to play, perform, high performance, alles deur mekaar in one session. And then we look at the coaches and we go, oh, you're doing a bad job. It's not that. You're asking coaches to coach fundamental skills, development skills, rugby sport specific skills, and educate these ladies about what the sport is about. Now you're asking investors from outside to invest in a product that doesn't from the outside seem sustainable from a financial, from a marketing, from a investment point of view. So it's all just like, it comes down to more exposure at school. Let's start developing there. Let's nurture the sport there. It will also change perception of teachers, of parents, because what you also find is there's this narrative about what and who rugby is for. And so once we can start changing perceptions off the field with those that aren't even playing the sport, I think it will help a lot to get the name of the game out there and it being perceived as something positive and a game for all, because it has changed lives for many of the women's rugby players that we currently see on TV. So sports structures definitely, and then the rest will work itself up from there.
I agree with you, Jocelyn. The challenge is people believe and perceive that there is a great structure currently. If I look, and I'll come to you in a minute, Danny. If I look at football, Ashraf, from your perspective, there's a club league, there's a LFA league. They go up to the Sassel, then they play. Talking about women's football, and then they go up the ranks. So there is a pipeline. From a rugby perspective, yes, there is to a degree, but it becomes almost, for both of you, a sausage factory to get as many players through as quickly as possible, because we don't have the top level. So we take your example. We take a sprinter who's got a different sport-specific skill, and now you want to change their focus and teach them how to throw a ball or how to kick a ball. In Ashraf's case, you know, and then you come to Daniel, who's saying, but that athlete belongs to me because he's a good 400-meter athlete. So and then there's that tussle between each other. Daniel, from your perspective, what do you think is the ideal space for an athlete to develop?
So firstly, I think from my opinion, I think we all touched on it, but it's mainly education. So we have especially in the less fortunate side schools, you know, the children goes after the cool guys, you know. They go after what they think is good, what they think is cool, what is advertised to them as being great. And sometimes the athletics in the school, or the soccer, or the rugby, it only goes this far. And then they see other things that entice them, or they don't have money to go further, because I think a lot of athletes stop when it's becoming expensive. You know, you need dogs, you need shoes, you need this, you need that. It's becoming expensive, so leave that. Do something else. Go with your friends, or whatever the case may be. I think that on the school structures, they need to identify individuals that is doing good and try to also nurture them. Because one thing that I wish that we had in schools is is that where we basically tell learners to do sport and whatever, and also measure their curriculum based on the sports that they also do. I know you get it in other schools, but in the schools like Menenberg, 11 those kind of schools, we don't have that. We don't have that structures that's there where they say, look here, so okay, if you do well in this sport, this goes on your report, it goes on something. Just something that we can hold these kids, like make it exciting for them. They know that if they're gonna do well, they're gonna, they're gonna get a good report, they're gonna have this, they're gonna have this. It's something that we also need to look at. Education. Education comes in different forms. Yes, we can have the facilities, we can have all the structures in place, but if the kids are not interested in doing it because they're not educated about it, and then you're not going to have these children going up the ranks, and it will always be those that can afford the talks, that those that can afford the sim gods, the sun gods and all that stuff that will go further. So it's something that we look at, because especially where we grew up, I've seen this. I've seen children that is great runners, great football players. At the end of the day, they go with their friends because they want to do other things that that is more enticing, that is more fun. Where this can also be fun for them. So that's something that we really need to look at, and that's education in the whole.
And linked to education would be what I would call mentorship, because unless we see the talent, we need to then nurture the talent, to what each of you are saying. To your point, Jocelyn, earlier of the different levels that we have. Ashraf, from your perspective in the football trajectory, we need to be able to have role models, to be able to walk alongside a Daniel and say, come, my friend, let me help you go through the path. Let me take you up the ranks. Are we doing that or not? Is that something that happens? As an
I don't think
example, I like to use the example of the late Joos van der Westhuizen. In his first year of being a Springbok, he was declared bankrupt because he spent his money because no one told him how to use his money and how to save his money. Has that system changed, or do we still just allow people to do what they want when they have a little bit of fame, a little bit of money? What are your guys' views from a life skills perspective?
Yeah, I think football has a lot of victims in this. Life after football, you look at a lot of footballers, there is no life afterwards. They have started with some initiating, trying to upskill professional players while they are at that level, how to manage their money. But I think these are things that should be taught to as they're going through the ranks as part of long-term player development. But I think football is the biggest of this. There's now football insurance that they're also offering now footballers.
Yes.
So things are slowly getting there, but it's not where it should be. I mean, we all know that sport has a small, short lifespan. So you're only a professional for a certain amount of years, and then after that, what's next? But I think if it's taught as from young already what you need to do and what you need to look out from the proper coaching structures, then I think this won't be a problem. But we all know when you come to grassroots, your daddy's coaching you, your uncle's coaching you, someone that doesn't have accreditation to do the right things, and at that age it's all about winning. So you spoke about, are we sending or developing through the structures? It's not like the case in soccer. It's not that. It's everybody's holding on to players, so they're not letting players go when they have opportunities to be better. They always want to keep on to players, and that stunts a lot of players in the long term effect. Where I'll use an example: a girl, 13-year-old, good enough to play on with bet, but because the coach doesn't want to let them go to help stay at the club, that player then loses out on exposure on a higher level where they could have been playing there. And it happened to me, many athletes or players that I would wanted, but clubs wouldn't release them, and the players don't even know about it. So it's a vibe in our sport. I'm not sure about the other sporting code, but in football, definitely.
Jocelyn, from your perspective, do you find the same thing happening in rugby?
I'm not aware of a women's rugby specific mentorship program, something that's quite established as in the men's rugby, where they've got this sort of beyond the game, continuous, learning, checking in with each other, professionals that are speaking to you about, how do you manage yourself? You've now been this professional athlete. It's like beyond the game. Who am I? What am I? So I would love to see something a little bit more formalized on the women's rugby side, particularly because, and now I'm speaking from a perspective of, ladies that leave the system, How sustainable is the game as a career is always my biggest question. Why aren't we getting, and I keep asking this, why aren't we getting these ladies that have achieved the highest level back into the system to go to schools, to coach there, you know what I mean, like to start their rugby clinics, to have this formalized structure of where they're reinvesting in the game, as Ashraf said, back into this long-term, yes, it's long-term player development, but there needs to be another step at the end that's also about the reinvestment in the game, so that you keep these players that have given so much. The game has given them so much, they give back to the game at the end of the day. And then that also goes then to representation, where other young girls and ladies see, oh wow, like I'm being coached by a female. The other problem that I normally have, and it's, you always see the guys and the gents investing so much more into female sports. That's also a topic for another day. Because, and that for me is a weird concept, and it's ironic, because there are brilliant ladies out there that could also, start their own thing. But I guess also in terms of career, family, postpartum, what does your career look like? Do you return to the game? Is there support structures to get you back as a coach, as a facilitator, assistant coach? I saw now recently that the Blue Bulls Daisies got to heavyweights back in to help them with their coaching as assistant coaches. So I was here for it, because I said, this is long overdue, that we get females that come back into the system at these levels. But then again, this is high performance. Now I'm asking myself, how many of the schools have these females coming back into the system at a school level, at a school structure to reinvest? Now again, you get a coach Alton Davis. He teaches life orientation, but he also happens to take the rugby. Then he coaches the ladies and the men up until about grade 6 or 7. And then they fall out of the system, and then hopefully they pick it back up in high school or at university. So there's a mismatch and a gap where I do think a mentorship program that is more formalized and structured can really add value, to get the participation numbers up, but also to that feeder system to run a little bit better or more smooth.
I agree with you. Tertia Dirks on YouTube says, absolutely agree with Jocelyn. Development at the grassroots level will take a long time, since we not only have to foster talent in players, but also in coaches. We not even, and Ashraf spoke about it, we don't have the conversation about long-term coach development alongside long-term player development. Both of them run parallel to each other. And I use this analogy often as well on this show. When I interviewed Peter de Villiers, I asked him, what's your coaching policy? He said, my policy is my athletes drive me, because my athletes tell me that what I don't know, and I've got to stay ahead of my athletes. So as much as he's growing the likes of Victor Matfield at that point, he was pushing himself to be ahead of the game, to be able to be at the sharp end of his coaching career, to coach the Springbok team. And we're not even having that conversation, because and I'll get to my next question. So let's park that there. Daniel, what's your view?
Okay, so if I look at athletics, again, there's not like Coach Ashraf and Dr. Jocelyn said, there's nothing athletics. It's mainly there's not enough people that is assisting the youngsters, because there's a lot of youngsters that runs, but they all fall off. Now the thing is, there is certain youngsters that that is good in the junior category. Now they win prize monies by junior categories. Now people 20, they go into open. Now they either not fast enough to run with the big boys or the big ladies, or they they in that category they leave their hand, because now you're not winning prize money, so now you're on your own and whatever and things like that. So these people that assists, but mainly when they see that there's something beneficial for them coming out, and then when it comes to the person a meeting open, they're gone, and now they're looking for the next junior they can train or whatever the case may be. But I feel that we need to try to get more people involved, trying to pick up the juniors, whether they are the faster runners, whether they are the slower runners, or whether they're in the middle class somewhere. Everyone can be developed to, at the end of the day, hit these numbers. None of us, started off actual talents, got this Kenyan legs going, running at crazy paces.
Yeah.
Where with education and with help and with mentorship, they can also get there. But I think that's where we're lacking. That's where we're lacking, because we don't have enough people to take people by the hand. And until we have something formal set up to say, look, here is a program, this is going to be set out to schools and whatever, so we're going to do this mentorship. Until we have something formal, we as a community unfortunately need to take the initiative upon ourselves to assist and help where we can.
You see, Danny, the problem is that we have a culture that is disappearing of volunteerism. So people aren't wanting to offer their time and effort, because to coach costs you time, it costs you money, and people aren't willing to do that. And that's the biggest challenge. When we played football and we played sport growing up, the coaches did it for the love of the game and to plow back into the lives of us. Nowadays, our generation, the generation after us, want to be paid for what they do. And that's one of the big challenges, which leads me to my next question. From your perspective, we're all talking about athletes and coaches. Do you think that the best athlete makes a great coach? What do you think on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube? Give us your thoughts. Danny, let's go reverse. Danny, you go first. Do you think being a 3-hour marathon runner makes you a great coach?
Say no, I would say no. Look, that works in all spheres, even at work. The best worker can't automatically be the leader, because maybe doesn't have that leading that skills or that ability to lead. I think it comes with education. It comes with some needs to be natural. Some people you just look at them and you check, but you a natural leader, the way you command yourself, and you're not the best runner, but the way that you can delegate things around you, like that is a leader. The best runners don't always make the best coaches, unfortunately, because you need to have some of that persona coming through, and it doesn't always work for everyone.
Jocelyn, what is your view?
I agree with Daniel over there, because I grew up and they used to say those of us that can't teach or coach, and vice versa. But in my experience, whether it's with dancing, even when it's within lecturing, within other sport codes, not everyone that's great at their sport or sporting code has the ability to break down those sport specific skills and actually become a true coach. You've got trainers and then you've got coaches, and that level of coaching requires a different set of skills, I almost want to say. Oftentimes you'll find that the coaches weren't always your top performing athletes when they were athletes, but it's because of their years of experience working with other athletes, working with other coaches, other opportunities, that their paradigm has been shifted. And probably if they had the opportunity to become athletes again, they would be better athletes because of the knowledge that they now gained in their coaching role. So definitely agree that not all of the best athletes make the best coaches. But I do think that the coaches have an upper hand. Once you're a coach and you've started, then I think your understanding of the sport, your horizons have broadened definitely, and I think that would set you up for a better athlete than you would have been or were before.
Definitely. On YouTube, Nicole Gafour says she agrees with you, Daniel. Maweba on YouTube says, that's true, Daniel. I agree with you. I always look at the fields here in Mitchell's Plain. Every weekend it's empty, most of them. Only a few are being used, of which Mitchell's Plain community is so huge. So Ashraf, from your perspective, if I just look at those two comments, there's soccer fields, there's a great striker. Does that striker make the best coach?
So I'm so glad you asked this question. You know why? Because this is also one of the viruses in football. You have pro coaches or pro players, they retire, then you next you know they got a head coach in top level clubs with no coaching experience just because they were this player. But then they don't do the job, and then 2 3 years down the line, that player is nowhere to be found. And it's a big problem in our sport. The best players don't make the best coaches. It's the best leaders that make the best coaches. So you will know it's always that player that can get everybody together. He might not be
Yeah.
the best, but on the field he gets everybody ticking. Those are the ones that push on to be great coaches. The ones that know they're not the best, but the hard work and the commitment, all the stuff that you need to do to be a top athlete, they tick those boxes, and those are the ones that push on. I use data from I've been coaching now for 15 years, and I've noticed that the ones that have born with talent are the ones that don't excel. They will make it to the pro level the quickest, but they won't sustain or stay there for long while they are professional or afterwards. It's the ones that have good grades at school and have the commitment, respect, the discipline. They might not have the talent at the beginning stages, but because of hard work, they end up getting to the professional ranks and staying in football or any sport for the longest time and become the students of the game and give back to the sport. And that's one thing I noticed. So again, it's another virus. We need to change something where we have structure in that. Once you're a professional, doesn't mean that you just get a coaching job, because there's things you need to learn, the education side of things, how to manage, how to put all the different personalities into one. And just because you are a great pro player for 10 years, 12 years, and people look up to you, it doesn't mean you'll emulate it to the next person, or get them to the next step, or be the better coach. And I've seen it so many times, and it's actually disheartening. You have guys in the trenches that work for years and are quality but never get the job, or because they're not ex-pro players, or whatever factors, but just because they never reach the level. And I think that's what how keeping the sport back and not allowing us to excel on a greater level in sport in general.
Definitely, and I agree with you, Ashraf. And if I look at your career, you started local, you then took a ladies team to league champs, then you went to Joburg, and now you're back. So my question then to each of you is, having the experience that you have currently, how would you explain to somebody in a foreign country the landscape of sport in South Africa? Because I always wonder about this. How do other people see sport? Because I have my view on how sport is run in South Africa, how it's managed, what the opportunities there are. But I'd like to hear from you guys. What are your views? And if you just tuned in, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, tell us your thoughts. What is your view on the landscape of South African sport? Because I think now with the new Minister Gayton McKenzie, things may be changing. I don't know. What are your views currently? Ashraf, let's go with Jocelyn first.
Okay.
Highest bidder wins. If you're at the right time, at the right place, then you're good to go as an athlete. These are like, I guess, words that are coming to mind when I just think about the landscape of sport in general. Mommy and daddy can invest, then you're set to go as well. The correct opportunities are only going to come if you are at the right institution or at the right place, or if you know someone that knows someone that can do something for you. So not what you know, but who you know.
Yeah.
And the landscape varies depending on the sporting codes and at the level as well.
Yeah.
And it's funny that, Coach Asi said that, there isn't this structure, but you got sports such as women's rugby that is looking to football to emulate that structure or to get the ideas. And I often say, sometimes the answers to a women's sporting code doesn't always lie in another woman's sporting code. It often lies in the men's sporting codes because of the longevity and the structuredness of it for years. But you're layered, Alton. It really is. Like I say, just from my experience, be at the right place at the right time. If mommy and daddy can invest, then you're set to go. And then if you can sustain that from a young age all the way up, the reason why I am where I am today is because I received a bursary to a private school. The private school gave me opportunities and exposure that I wouldn't have had anywhere else. I landed in Stellenbosch. Stellenbosch University gave me opportunities that I didn't know I would see myself doing or committing to. And now today, I'm, a product of that environment, all because I happen to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. It's about who you know and where you're in the right place at the right time. Ashraf, from your perspective, how would you describe the
Now,
landscape of sport in South Africa?
so I'll base it on football. I mean, I think football is the same. It's all about who you know. It's not what you can do. I mean, if you have influential parents, then you know you're gonna make it. If you know the right people in the right places, then you're gonna make it. If you're at the right time, the right place. Because yeah, I know Dr. Jocelyn said that you guys try and emulate football to obviously grow the rugby side of things, which is not right. Our structures are growing in the women's side very nicely. I mean, we have LFA, we have grassroots. Not all the LFAs have grassroots girls divisions yet, but it is growing and it's fast growing. It's just how it's run, who's running it, when it comes to selection, how selection processes are done, who is selecting, why are they selectors, how did they get to be selectors, and when is selection. I mean, there's calendars that are pushed out for the beginning of the year, but then you have trials that's notified on the last day. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things, and then there's also the internal politics of the different levels of administrations fighting each other. If you have the region and the provincial fighting each other, national and provincial, internal politics, that is all making the game suffer and everything around it. So again, there's a lot of politics in sport that should be taken out and putting sport first. And I think that's what Gaten McKenzie, if he steps in, he'll do a lot of good work because, like I said, South Africa have potential to be great. We just need the right people at the right spots to do the right thing for the sport, not for self gain, not for anything else but the sport. If I look at myself, I live by integrity. I don't care if you don't like me at the end of the day. If I'm doing the right thing, I know I'm doing it for the end of the day for the sport or for the athlete to excel and to grow the sports brand. I'm not taking brown envelopes. I'm not checking or going down the wrong roads, which is
Yeah.
evident in most sport. But yeah, it's all about who you know in football. That's how it is.
The downside of that, Ashraf, is often we get left behind because we don't do that kind of stuff. We don't curry favor with the Daniel who's going to give you the brown envelope. So you don't get the PSL coaching, you don't get the NFD coaching, you don't go to the Western Province Rugby Academy in the rugby space because you're not with the in crowd. And again, the best coaches don't always get the best jobs.
That's
However,
correct. 100%.
I'm also of the view that the best coaches should be at junior level, not at senior level. And
That's
and
also
you
right.
you you can answer. We'll come to that question. I'll park that for you. I'll give you the two of you chance to think about it. Danny, from your perspective, what is your understanding of the landscape of sport currently?
I think again, Coach Ashraf and Dr. Jocelyn mentioned that it's always the coach's child that is always playing every single match, whether it's the best player or not. It's always playing the good matches, and then when the scouts comes out for selection, look at that one. That one is the coach is inspired, showing them, look at that one, look at that one. Unfortunately, that's within our landscape right now, and it's something, it's a disease in our sport, but it's something that's going to over time only be eradicated over time. It's not going to happen overnight, because like you just mentioned now, it's not always the best ones that get selected for the promotions or for the higher leagues or anything like that. There's always a brown envelope, coke money somewhere in the cabio hidden away. But we can eradicate that if we all work together, and stop that disease from spreading, because we have lots of talents, and it is just for us to stand up for what is right. Because I know a lot of people, the reason why they turn a blind eye is because I don't want to fall into that bad crowd. I don't want to be the one that is the odd one out, the one that is saying things as is. And like Coach Ashraf just said, he doesn't mind going against the grain. He's gonna do what is right all the time. But there's the minority is like that. If we really honest about it, the majority, they want to be with the in crowd. They want to please this one, they want to please that one, to select certain people based on who they are, eye marked, to go further. So yeah.
Daddy, but that's why I coach my child's team, because my child must play every game. That's the reason why I'm a coach. For no other reason. So my child can play every game. Do you not know that?
Manager.
Yes. That's why parents are coaches. That's why they are chairmen. That's why they are secretaries, to make sure that their child gets preferential treatment. Hey, Ashraf, isn't that the reason?
Yeah, you can look at the PSL even. I mean, there's an owner that has a club and his son plays in the PSL. Won't mention any
But
Exactly.
names, but there's
yeah,
there.
but can we just talk about how at school level, how the level of sport participation has changed from when I used to be at school. I mean, I was used to parents being on the side and that's where you were, and the coach did their job. Nowadays, you have parents as managers, parents speaking to coaches, just the culture of school sport, it being so competitive. Like, it's such a losing game, unfortunately, for coaches at school level, particularly, because they listen to the head coach or the manager because a parent said something, or the parent sponsoring the kit, and that whole group is dependent on getting the kit to go on tour. So there's this monopoly that's also happening behind the scenes. And I think there's so many more levels to what we often understand as coaches, to what's really happening on ground level. Because, like I say, the landscape of sport at school level has changed dramatically, and I think that culture is filtered into primary school, high school, all the way up to your top leagues, and sort of high performance structures. So yeah, it's, I don't know how we want to win this, but I do feel that if we start ingraining some kind of attitude to our kids at a young age, to say, lead with that authenticity, that honesty, that integrity, learn to speak up when things aren't right, because this day and age, kids want to say whatever's on their mind. So give them that opportunity, but teach them to do it so respectfully and to speak out about the right things. And we can really capitalize on this new generation because they're so outspoken and they'll say exactly what's on their mind. So if we can nurture that, ingrain that positive culture of calling a spade, keeping coaches accountable, but also remembering that those players or those kids are gonna be your next coaches, they're gonna be your next selectors, your recruiters, your managers. And so I think the way, as Coach Daniel also said, that we can start cutting away at the rotten fruit is at school level, how we as coaches are interacting with our young athletes, and ingraining that positive culture at the end of the day, because again, we're giving to them and they're going to be paying the way forward.
And I just want to touch on what Dr. Jocelyn also said now. The parents who are becoming coaches, and there is a coach, they are so serious about the football. I've got my son in fives, and honestly, my son is not one of the best players in the team, but the reason why I always tell him to go back is because he enjoys playing. He's not the best, but he enjoys the game. He enjoys running. He enjoys, and if he scores a goal, I will hear about that goal. Understand? But parents are so strict and so, "Yeah, you didn't score today. Why did the kick miss?" And it creates that we playing, the sport is not fun anymore. Running is not fun anymore because you're forced to do it now. Taking the fun out of the game now, it's like I have to go to training again, and I
Yeah.
have to play, and if I'm gonna kick must, my daddy's gonna scale at me, and then all that. We as parents need to play our role. We need to ensure that the child still have fun, because if they're not gonna have fun, they're gonna let go. They're gonna jump off the bandwagon, and eventually they're gonna rebel and say, "Look here, but I don't want to play. They're a good player, but I don't want to play because there's too much pressure. We are putting too much pressure on these kids to perform. They're not professionals, and they need to have fun." So we as parents also need to take the responsibility there to ensure that our children stays within the structure of sport, and to encourage them and to say, "Look here, it's okay. We work again on that. We work again on that, just to make sure that they still have that interest of sport."
Yeah, I think
Look, Danny,
exactly what you're saying.
yeah. Go,
I, was-
Ashraf.
I just want to say, yeah, I think it's perfect. I think parents forget the essence of why they play sports. I think most of them think that their child is going to be the next Ronaldo or next Messi when they don't realize that sports is actually to teach them about punctuality, being part of a team, learn to be in an environment where things might not go your way, but you can still achieve your goals, your short term, medium goals. Those are the essence that sport is there for, especially at the grassroots levels. And I think parents need to educate themselves, clubs or schools need to make it aware that parents need to know where their place is when supporting kids, young kids, especially because I mean in soccer, under 9 tournaments become like World Cups, parents
Yeah.
fighting with the refs because it gets so competitive, and the kids see this and see how they behave, and it filters down to them, and they pick up the wrong things and they think it's right, and that ends up making the athlete a very bad apple, very talented but bad attitude, and it comes down to the parents and how they act on the side. And I think it comes down to the awareness of how you should be as a parent. And I think clubs should also be starting putting in still parent code of conduct, trying to keep parents away from the field, especially for matches, so that kids can excel and just be free and play the game and be coached by a coach and not by 10,000 parents. And I agree with what Coach Daniel said, yeah, very much.
Look, I'm gonna come to two things. So Melissa on Instagram says the best soccer coaches are and should be in development soccer, as they take the principle-driven approach to teaching, getting to know the players as being individual to order to help them develop. So I'm gonna park that there for a second. Shani on Facebook says, listening to all of you is such an eye opener. What I thought I was just happening in movies. And that comment came in when Daniel was talking about the parents on the sideline jumping up and down. So my question then is, or my comment is that parents often want to live their unfulfilled aspirations through their child's life, Daniel. So because you are
Vicariously.
only a runner, Daniel, you are not a soccer player, but you played soccer
Yes.
when you were at school, so now you couldn't make a soccer the first team. Your son must now be the best player so that you can say, come to work. My child scored a goal this week. Am I wrong, or is that the perception? Is that what actually happens?
No, that's really
Yes.
what happens, because at the end of the day, is like, that I know people that was semi-pro in football, and they are saying, "Yeah, my child is lazy and he doesn't want to do this and he doesn't want to do that." And then I also asked that, "But now, what do you want for him? Does he really want to play?" But because they were semi-pro, they feel that their child can go the next level, and they are the right people to take their child there. But unfortunately, that's not the case. My son doesn't like running. So the more I say, "Come, Zeke, come, you and Daddy, we're gonna go for a run," I don't like running, understand? But I can't force him to go run, because when I was in primary school, I I couldn't run. I never made it for these things. So how am I expecting him to now do that, because I'm a runner now, and I'm doing well now, so which means that he must also do well. You can't expect that. And I think that's the thing that's killing our youth at the moment, is that we basically want to live our dreams through them. And it's not going to work like that because they are their own individual. They've got their own hopes and dreams. They've got their own things that they have seen and identified, and what they want to be, and who they want to be, and how they want to do it. Understand? So we really can't force that upon them.
Agree. And Ashraf, let me come to a point that you made earlier about the parents' code and the athletes' code. If coaches follow the long-term participant development plan and the long-term coach development plan, if you follow it to the T, in there it talks about having a parents' code. It talks about having a players' code, which most clubs, most coaches don't even know exist because they don't follow the LTPD. Most people have never even heard of it. Because they tune into this show, we talk about it reasonably often through the guests. So people have slowly but surely gotten to understand. But this is a principle that's been around since 2010. Yet it's foreign to most people, which for me is
Mhm.
mind blowing.
Yeah, I think it comes down to awareness. I think if I use my club as an example, right, on registration, we have a parent code of conduct, player code of conduct that they have on our website in a link so that they must go through it, sign it, so they understand exactly where they are. So if we have coach or parents shouting on the side, we can say thank you, goodbye. You obviously breaking the code of conduct, and that's not what we signed up for. Just so we can encourage proper learning and no pressure at the wrong ages. So again, I think it comes down to awareness and then club structures, having the right structures, the right people at your clubs that know what you're doing, not this daddy that started a club now because his son didn't make it here. Now he's going to start a club or something like that. And then they don't follow the proper procedures and structures in the club to have it. Some clubs don't have constitutions, don't have exco members. They're just one person running a club. So there's a lot of flaws and that can be, but it comes down to education, understanding what you and awareness of what you want to get across. So yeah.
Jocelyn, what is your view on this parents' code and athletes' code?
Absolutely. It's something that I was introduced to. I mean, my mommy used to go drop me for dancing at the age of 9 and 10. She could still sit in on my dance classes. And then it got to a point where at some dance studios, it wasn't allowed. She just had to simply drop me and go. And that wasn't so that my mom couldn't see the dancing that we weren't doing or not doing, or like it was a surprise or anything,
Yeah.
but it was to keep the dance moms where they needed to be. And that's in the car waiting.
Yeah.
um, and so that also teaches you up until this day, it also teaches you as the athlete or sports person a sense of accountability and responsibility for your own development, making your own choices. Is this something that I want to do for fun? Is this something that I'm doing because, my parents did it and so I need to follow that path? Is this really what makes me happy? I mean, played hockey for 12 years and all of a sudden I want to dabble in netball. So be it. So I think parents need to stop this helicopter parenting as well at a certain point. And like both coaches have said, the hands-off approach is sometimes better. Let the coach do their job. You as the parents need to just instill that sport is your vehicle at a young age to teach other life lessons. And then eventually you'll get to a point where you are mature enough to understand that this can now become something that you can specialize in, create a career from. And then you have other people that take your hand and walk a professional path with you to help guide and nurture what that career looks like eventually.
Yeah, definitely. Claudia Jenkins on YouTube says stage parents on the sideline are the worst, especially at school. I've seen so many parents living through their kids. Participating in sport is so much more than the achievements in inverted commas. The principles of sport, as we know, is about commitment, dedication, time management, focus, and team commitment, not necessarily about winning every game. And if you understand long-term participant development, you'll understand there are different phases. Learn to play the game, learn to grow, fundamentals, active start, learn to train to raise, train to compete, train to win. Those are the different stages. But remember that each code of sport has a different system in each code. So in gymnastics, for example, train to compete is at 10 years old because that is early specialization. In football is at 20. And people don't understand those kind of fine nuances.
Sure.
And unless you
Sure.
understand it, it becomes a different conversation. So we coming to the end, and in closing, I'm gonna throw the say again. So in closing, I'm gonna throw that question back at you. Top coaches need to be at grassroots? My view is potentially yes, because that's where we need to impart the most critical information. You come to a senior level, you come to a Springbok level, you need a statistician, because that guy, that woman playing in the Springbok sevens can pass a ball. She knows the game. You don't need to teach her how to throw the ball. Ashraf, you don't need to teach him how to kick the ball. You need to teach them how to manage themselves in that environment. Is one perspective. The other perspective is you need the top coach at the top. So in closing, I'm going to ask each of you to give me your view on that, number one. Number two, and then round up as to why you are still involved in sport and why I should continue to sport and everybody else watching. So I'm giving you, I'm asking for a mouthful
Yeah,
because
that's a
Who's
lot.
going for this?
Okay, from my side, I think I'll start. I think from my side, when you look at the top coaches, is the ones that is coaching because of passion and not because of the money that is there. And I feel a lot of the people on grassroots are the people that's there for passion, because that was the people that weren't wavered away, due to other things that could have been promised to them, and they really, because I know quite a few, especially in the just playing area, that is constantly working with the kids, constantly sacrificing their time after school, sitting with them, training them, and always being there, So, but that is the place where all the better coaches, the ones that knows how to develop, needs to be, is at the grassroots, because that's where we're teaching all the soft skills. That's where we teach them, life, and how and how we add football or whatever sport code they're doing to life. It teaches, like, for me, it taught me discipline. I was very emotional, you know uh, 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 um, uh, got upset for anything, but with athletics, you can't be upset, you can't go run and go sprint, but you're busy doing a marathon. You're
yeah,
gonna learn your
sure.
lesson within the first kilometer, and then you're gonna realize, but that was a bad idea. I had to control my emotions, and I had to lower my pace. So these are all the things that we want to teach the youngsters, and we can teach them this through sport, life lessons. How to be a good father one day, how to be a good friend, how to be a good this. All of this stuff is attached to sport, because everything that we do in sport, the disciplines that we learn there, it stays with you as you grow in your job, in your house. It stays with you everywhere, because that's what it did for me. And I feel, for me, the reason why I'm always going to be staying in sport, because I know where it took me out, and I want to advertise that to others. I want, when I see others are struggling, especially with depression, with anxiety and stuff like that, I want to show them, instead of drinking, and your depression you deal with by drinking a lot, and eventually your family is, chaotic. You can use sport. You can just put on your techies. If you're upset, put on your techies, you go for a run, you come back, you're gonna feel much better. If you're very angry, instead of jumping in your car and spinning down here, 180, 200, like a mad cow, you know, of Miran fast race, things like that. Put on shoes, put on your techies, and go for a run. You can run at 180, you will be humbled, but you
Yeah.
will learn these lessons very quickly within sport. So that's why I want to stay in sport, encourage others to keep on, learning from sport, and adapt that to your life.
Thank you, Daniel. Great analogies there of racing cars. Considering we spoke about Gaitan McKenzie, we'll just park that one right there. You see the connection there. From your perspective, top coach at grassroots and a roundup.
So okay, I'll go next. I think I would love the top coaches to then go to grassroots or fit in probably in the train to compete phase first. Spend some years there. That's in football with under 16 and 18 phase. Just to focus and get your coaching practical skills in. And if you do excel there, then maybe look onto coaching a professional team instead of then just jumping into professional club and think you're gonna be the next Mourinho or Pep, which doesn't happen in our football. I think there needs to be some kind of guideline or ruling if we're going to want change in the sport where professionals just can't just jump into a top coaching job. But because I think the different unions that rule our football, PSL and SAFA, they can't come to agreement on any specific ruling because the one governs top leagues and the other one governs the amateur side and grassroots side. So there's never a win there. But I think for change, we need to make sure, because if you look at it, if you have an idol that's just retiring and goes to grassroots, you are going to uplift so many kids because your idol is now your coach. And that alone is going to make them want to come play. And you're going to bring people off the streets just to meet this guy, let alone being coached by him. Now, imagine we have so many ex-pros coaching across the population of the sport will grow so much more. The coaches that retire will then have more practical experience before jumping, and they will have time to get their accreditation, their badges, so that they are at the right stage to excel on the pro level. I think that would help a lot. And then why am I in sport? I love sport. I think every day I get to see how much lives I change and how much people in the community I help. And I think that helps me sleep a lot better. I'm a person that likes to help. And using what I experienced through my life and all the negativity or the negative side of things, that maybe for the next person doesn't go through that, and I can help avoid that and help fast track them in their sporting career, especially for football. And knowing the knowledge that I have and the network that I have now and build up through trial and tribulations, I know that I can help them get there at the right date and not through the back door, but the right way, through hard work and dedication, with the right coaching knowledge and support. And me seeing the change in people and people that I've helped through coaches being new coaches or players playing the sport. I see the change, and that for me is what it gives me my kick. And I think paying it forward, they will do the same. So yeah, that alone is what I'm here for, and just to help excel and grow the sport and doing things the right way.
It's what I call the intangibles. You don't physically see it, but it's there. You see the difference you make in people's lives, and in years to come, people will come back to say, "Coach, remember when you coached me under 10? This is what happened."
100%.
You know?
That
And you
happens a lot.
know that Ashraf, how the coaches coach you, that you now being able to impart it, and you see them, you'll say, "Coach, you remember me? This is what we did way back then." And that's what it's about. It's the intangibles and paying it forward. Jocelyn,
100%. And those. Okay.
Oh, can I just say copy paste, Coach Daniel and Assie's question answers there, but couldn't have said it any better. I would just add that your top coaches are probably the coaches that have mastered the art and science of coaching. And so I feel and I believe that that's a great fit for instilling both those dimensions to your next set of coaches or managers, or even just athletes that want to excel on a different level. So giving back to grassroots and development, not a lot of coaches get it right to still instill other values off the field or off the turf or whatever the playing field may be. And we know that the coach-athlete relationship is probably one of the most fundamental relationships that an athlete can have at a very young age, but also for a coach, what that can do for them, filling cups from both ends. The reason why I'm still in sport or involved in dancing is because I believe it's my God-given talent. And it's opened many doors for me. And something that I always say when people ask me about dancing and my talent, and I say that, the Bible says your gift shall make way for you. And I believe that dance and being in sport is my gift. And it's put me in rooms with people that I wouldn't have seen myself approaching or being, interviewed by or serving on a platform like this where you can share knowledge from different backgrounds. And it's also allowed me to see that you can influence someone's perspective just by something that you've said. They're inspired, maybe not by this big thesis, but about the way you made them feel about their moment in their sporting code, or advice that you shared, or something personal that you went through, and they go, wow, there's still human beings on the other side of being a coach or being an athlete or a lecturer, whatever the case may be. So sport has allowed me to also change my paradigm, and it gives me a reality check every now and again. So it's doing, I say, a lot more for me than I do for it. And for that, I'm forever grateful for sport in my life.
And thank you, Jocelyn. And I think the biggest thing around that is if you look at how sport has shaped each of us, it has a long-term benefit, and a situation where we will take it forward, going all the way to our graves, effectively. And for me, coaching is like a conductor of an orchestra. And you're thinking, like, where is this bra going with this statement? So think of it this way. The coach stands in front, and each person in that orchestra plays a different instrument. Right? Mm-hmm. So you got someone playing the piano, you got someone playing the guitar, the trombone, the trumpet, the saxophone, all of those. As a coach, your job is to make sure that everybody in that entire orchestra plays together to get the music. So whether you have a player, whether you have a parent, whether you have administration, whether we have the system that you spoke about, Jocelyn, whether we have science that you spoke about, whether we speak about the parents, Danny, that are wanting to live their kids' lives. Ashraf, when we talk about how the system has failed us in terms of the structure between PSL and LFA, as an example. The coach's role is to make sure that everybody plays in that same space to make the best music so that the athlete has the best experience. That's my perspective of coaching. Whether you're at the top level, whether you're in the middle, whether you're at the bottom. And linked to that is the long-term participant development. Learn to train, learn to play, learn to compete. And unless we build that together, we make a complete society in terms of sport. And I think that, to answer my perspective on how I think South African sport is, we're not there yet. We're not in that. We're not playing. All the coaches aren't playing in that space. And unless we get to that space, we're not going to have a pipeline that's going to grow sport all the way for years to come. I don't know if any of you want to add anything to that before we say goodbye, but that's my views on, or to summarize what you guys have said tonight.
I think I'll just end off with, I think most coaches or people must remember that we are human beings before we are athletes or anything else. So I think you need to treat everybody as a human first, and I think that's where you won't go wrong, because everybody's experienced their own struggles in life, and once you understand what's happening with that set human and we put that first, I think you will excel in any sport code. So, yeah.
Definitely. And the team on Facebook says, fantastic show, Elton, amazing guest, and I'm enjoying hearing everyone's views, many aspects that are common within the different sporting codes and things that we need to work on. But there's also lots of positivity, not only negativity, that we need to take out of it. Not everything is negative. There's lots of positive things happening, and we need to grow and continue with that. Shani says, thank you to each and every one of you for sharing your heart with us tonight and for the different insights shared. Your input is invaluable and priceless. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to our guests, Jocelyn, Danny, and Ashraf. It's been awesome having you guys on. Next week, we have 3 new guests. So stay tuned. Next week, Wednesday, 8 o'clock, live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Have an amazing week. Stay safe. Thank you for joining us. Ciao for now.